And good evening. Welcome once again to Branco Broadcast. I am Bob Branco. We're very pleased to have back for a third time out of popular demand, Joni Leonard. She is a phone sex operator. She's going to tell us a little bit about her profession, what she's been doing, and she'll give us a brief presentation, and then I will open the floor to questions from everyone. Good evening, Joni.
Good evening, Bob, and good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you all again for the third time. And I know that there are a lot of people that haven't heard me that are on, but there are a lot of people that have. So if I repeat myself a little bit, please forgive me. Well, I always wanted to use my voice for something because people told me that I had a good voice. And my ex-husband and I, because he was in the Arctic for about a year and a half, he was on the DEW line, and we corresponded by tape. In fact, we met each other in the Voice-Spondence Club. And so our tapes kind of, we'd ask each other how we were doing and all this stuff. But then we kind of started doing phone sex, but on tape. So I had experience, and I really wanted to do phone sex, but I didn't know where to go to do it. Well, fast forward to 1992, and I've been talking to people about it, and people would say, you can find phone numbers in back of magazines. Well, I couldn't read the print magazine, so I couldn't find the phone numbers. So, ironically, it was a blind guy that told me about a phone sex service. And he gave me the number, and I wanted to do it, but I was petrified that I wouldn't be able to do it and all this stuff. So he gave me the number over the Memorial Day weekend, and really wanted to get a job. I needed to. So finally, this was 1992, so finally on August 11th, 1992, I picked up the phone and called the number, and I get an answering machine. And I said, an answering machine? Well, maybe she'll call me back. And she didn't call me back and didn't call me back. And I then was determined that I speak with the boss, Cindy Norris, her name was. She's no longer living. So finally, I called, and I started speaking with her, and she was very nice, and I told her, at first I think I didn't tell her that I was blind, and then I finally told her, because she had notes that she wanted me to write about different phases of the sex line, and I said, well, Cindy, I'm a person that's blind, and I hope I'm still going to be able to work with you or for you. And she said, well, what kind of experience do you have? And I told her that I had done a lot of tapes with my husband, and that we had, we corresponded, and the tapes were pretty, I knew what I was doing, in other words. So she explained to me what the calls would be like, and she said, I said, well, when can I start? And she said, tonight. I said, oh, no, to myself. I can't do any calls. I never did a call in my life like that. So she hired me, and The very first call I did, and we used to do collect calls and we did a lot of different kinds of calls. And in those days, you could make collect calls. I don't think you can anymore. But in those days, you could make collect calls, and a lot of guys wanted to pay for the collect call. So I make this call. The phone rings a few times. A woman answers. Oh, my God, what do I do now? A woman answers. So I just quick hung up. And it was my first experience. And then I quick called my sister and I said, I got a job. I'm going to be a phone sex operator. And she was thrilled and I was petrified. But I did a few more calls that night, and I learned by doing. I got a little advice. I didn't know too much about what to do or how to do it, but I learned very, very quickly. And I learned that most of the guys were interested in fantasy. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to create these fantasies. Well, wrong. The guys would tell me what they wanted me to do to and for them. And we would be told how much time we had with a guy. A lot of 10-minute calls. Sometimes you had a guy that paid for an hour. And I had nothing to do with the collection of the money. The service collected the money. And then we would get percentages. Bob, I guess you could open it up for questions now. People have them.
Okay, first person is Lauren.
Lauren?
Lauren, are you there?
Well, I don't have any questions because I know Joni for years and I know all about it, so you can go on to the next person.
Okay, Stephen.
Yeah, I didn't really have any questions either, except that I know you said that your background in social work helped you understand different kinds of people, so I guess the next person can take it.
Well, let me just expand on that a little bit. I have a master's in social work, and somebody had told me that because I didn't know what I was going to go for my graduate degree in. I thought of psychology. Somebody said to me, you can do a lot with a master's in social work. And I learned how to deal with people. Well, I always was good with people, I think. But my master's taught me a lot about people. And the idea in my profession was to keep people on the phone as long as you could. And I really learned by doing. And I kept people on the phone for hours and hours and hours. And I got a lot of requests. People wanted to talk only to me. And that was very, very flattering. I could get requests, and you got more money for requests. And I could keep some of my requesters on for hours and hours and hours. And they loved it. And I fell asleep lots of times. But it was really fun. Okay.
Okay, Marcy.
Joni, I have a question for you. It's kind of a twist. Would you say with having done this and keeping people on the phone, maybe those that were depressed, you undepressed?
Oh, they would tell me that they felt a lot better after we spoke. Because I knew how to speak to the male ego. A lot of these people that would call me, you would think, all they wanted was the sexual part, but they didn't. They were lonely men and women that called me, and they needed somebody to talk to. And I somehow knew how to talk to them to make them feel better. And they would say that they felt so much better after they spoke with me. Well, what I learned in life, from life and in life, is that when you're speaking with someone, a way to really, everybody's favorite subject is themselves. So I would try to bring them out to tell me about yourself. Tell me, what are you interested in? Do you have a fantasy? Sometimes they would have a fantasy. We'd do it. And sometimes we would do it over and over and over and over again. But for people that were depressed, well, what's going on with you? Why do you think you're so depressed? Oh, I'm lonely. My wife / girlfriend is out of town. That's why I called you. And Ginger, you're always there for me. And that was my chief alias was Ginger.
All right. Now let's go to Victor. Are you there, Victor? I guess you're not. So let's go to Trish.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Okay.
Victor, was that you?
My question is, that's a very interesting profession, and do they still have those kinds of things out there?
Well, unfortunately, phone sex, which was very big when I was doing it in the 90s, has changed radically because of the Internet. On the Internet, and people that can see want pictures. And even while I was doing it, people wanted pictures. Oh, Ginger, please send me a picture of you. Well, the service would send pictures, and the guys had to spend more money for them. And the guys wanted panties and pictures, and we didn't have to send them, thank God, to the guys, because we didn't even have their names and addresses or anything. So Cindy would get the cheapest panties that she could, and shall I say, it's hard to say it without blushing. Anyway, she would send guys panties that had been already worn.
God.
And, and they loved it. Now with the Internet, guys don't have to pay. They can get a lot of what they want for free. Plus, guys are very stimulated by pictures. And it's very difficult for a blind person to compete with that.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it was good while it lasted.
Yeah, I guess I'm too late. I thought about that as a joke a long time ago. I mentioned that, and my husband said, "Go for it," and I'm like, "Yeah, that could never happen." But when I heard that you were coming on the line, I said, "I have to talk to this lady. She sounds very interesting."
Well, I still have a customer. Actually, I have a customer that, well, it's so interesting because he was a customer when I worked for several different services because one of them went bankrupt, and then another one hired me, and then another one hired me. But this guy had been talking to different services for quite a while, and one of the dispatchers said to me, if you talk to this guy and he likes you, he will stay with you forever. Well, he and I clicked, and I have been talking to him since about 1997. Off and on. He's a private customer. We do sessions when we decide to do them, and he's a great guy, and we've become friends, and we're friends, but we do sessions, and he has an ongoing fantasy that we always do, and he's a lot of fun.
Wow, that's interesting. Very interesting. Thank you.
Okay, Victor, I thought I heard you come on.
Yes, I did, yes.
Go ahead, your turn.
So, Johnny, what do you do now exactly? Do you miss it?
I do miss it. I worked so hard when I was doing it. I loved it. And I wanted to be there for the companies that I worked for. So I would be on, well, they called me one of their 24-hour girls because they called me, and whatever time it was, I'd pick up the phone and they'd say, can you do a call? Or we need you. Nobody else is on. And I wanted to prove to them and to myself that I could do that. And so that, I don't want to sound vain or anything, but I was sought after. I would get 5 and 6 requests that I couldn't even fulfill in a night and early morning. They always needed girls to work on the graveyard shift. And I did. And, near the end, well, I guess I still did it, but I was making myself sick by working so many hours. It was getting to be a little bit much. So I cut back a little bit, but I tell you, I had so much fun. I had some very boring calls. I really did. And I did fall asleep during them. I got to where the guys would not know that I fell asleep, but I'd be sort of half asleep and be talking to them like an automatic, kind of like a jukebox, talking and saying what they wanted to hear. And but then there were other guys where we would do these far out fantasies, and they were really, really fun. And what do I do now? Well, I'm basically retired. I'm still able to do it, obviously, but it'd be very difficult for a blind person to do it now. And you have to look for your own customers. You have to troll the internet. You don't know what you're getting into. And as a blind person, guys, in the 90s, everybody was so afraid of AIDS and stuff. It was wonderful because it was the safest sex that you could have. And where does sex really take place? In the brain. So, the internet wasn't nearly like it is now. I even did, when I first started, we did 900 numbers. And, as I say, I started in 1992, and I still have my one customer, and I was thinking I was going to start up a service for blind people to call me.
Hey, that sounds good. Good idea.
Well, I never did that.
Huh.
Okay, Karen. Karen?
Joni, I've got 2 questions for you.
Uh-huh.
And maybe you can answer this, maybe not. But what is, say, one of the most interesting calls you got? You don't have to get too descriptive, but what is one of the most interesting calls you got? And would it be something you'd still consider doing something for blind people, starting a line or something?
Well, the problem, okay, what was my most interesting call? I used to love to, in Fantasies, I could tell people that I was anything. I could tell people that I was a doctor. A lot of guys wanted to talk to a nurse, doctor, whatever. I told guys I was a pharmacologist, that I knew everything about drugs and the makeup of different things that I didn't know anything about. I don't know what my most interesting call was, but I love to do medical fantasy. It was really fun. About starting a service for blind people, the problem is that a lot of blind people don't have money. And if I was going to do this, I would have to charge for it. And it's the idea of taking credit cards and I think maybe I don't think I could do it anymore. I could do it like I do it with my one customer, but to have a whole lot of guys or girls calling up, I don't know. And then it would be hiring people, and it would be starting a whole business plan. And I'm 77 years old. I don't know if I really. I kind of like what I do now, and what I do now is that on another line with Bob Branco, I have every other Friday night, I have a chat room called, what is it called? Book Chat.
Books and More.
Books and More, yeah.
And one of the ways that I learned to do what I did so well was that I am an avid, voracious reader. So if a person wanted to do a fantasy about something that I didn't know very much about, that I had read about it in a book, a line from the book would come up to me and say, oh, yeah, I know how to do that. Well, I had a lot of guys that wanted to talk with lady wrestlers. Nobody could do those calls but me. Because how did I know about wrestling? Because my father and I used to fool around, and he would say, this is a full Nelson, this is a half Nelson. And just from that little knowledge, I could expand it, where guys thought I was a real wrestler. And it was a riot. It was so funny. They thought I knew all this stuff, and I would just make it up as I went along, as I did with a lot of things. I mean, it's not an easy thing for a blind woman to talk about. You're always talking about visual things. Mm-hmm. You're talking about colors. You're talking about things that a blind person doesn't normally know about. My sister and I went to one of these stores that sell sexual equipment, shall we say? Mm-hmm. And I just learned about some of these things over the phone, and I wanted to know what they looked like. And she shows me this one thing. It's a ball attached to a gag. I said to her, she says, what do you think this is? I said, that's a ball gag. She says, how does my sister, who's blind, know what a ball gag is? I said, well, I learned it from different people that I spoke with, and I just kind of pretended that I knew what things looked like. And we would go into these sex shops, and I would blush, and my sister would blush, but she was real good to me about going into these stores and letting me look at things.
I think that's great.
Oh, my sister is a terrific person anyway, and she was so thrilled that I got my job that She lives in Arizona and I live in New Jersey. But when we would get together, we'd go into these places. And then I would buy vibrators and, it was all it was for my work.
Uh-huh.
And it was so fun. I mean, what kind of a job can you get where you lie in bed all day, talk on the phone, and pleasure yourself? I mean, there's nothing like
Win-win.
Testing out beds.
Well, they say that you should love your work, and I really, really did, and I relished. I mean, I never knew who the calls were coming from. I worked with, after the service that closed in, I forget. But anyway, I tried to work for a couple other services, and a lot of the people that I spoke with were not very nice people. And the pay was minimal. It was nothing. And they would punish you if you didn't do enough calls, and they were very exploitative. They made a lot of money, and I was very unhappy working for them. Then I started working with another service, which was really nice, but then I became ill. I had a heart attack, and I never went back to work for them. But it was funny because I would have guys that wanted to talk to an older woman, and they'd say, "You're too young." I said, "I'm not. I really am not. I'm whatever age I was then." No, I don't believe it. I can't talk to you. You're too young. Because I do a lot of 18, 20, 23-year-olds, and that they believe. They also, they wanted a black woman. Well, I would say that I was black, but I didn't have that black, sometimes that there's a black accent that you hear. And I didn't have that, so they wouldn't believe that either. I lied a lot. But I spoke with creeps, but I ended up doing anything that they wanted me to do. I didn't even care. We were not supposed to do, should I say it over the line?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay, don't be shocked. We were not supposed to do bestiality. I did bestiality. We weren't supposed to do snuff films. I got killed many times. And I loved it. I loved it all. Well, I would always say to my callers that wanted bestiality, well, I just love animals, and they love me too. And in the beginning, when I did dominant, submissive, I would do anything because they couldn't find people that would do things. There were some things that there were some guys that I wouldn't speak to. After a while, they were too
aggressive.
Pardon, Steve?
Aggressive?
Yeah. And I had some jerks, and we didn't have to talk to people if we didn't really want to. And I had guys that would say, "Now, go outside your house naked." I said, "Okay." And they would say, "Well, I don't really believe that you went outside your house with no clothes on." And I'd say, "Hey, you know what? This is a fantasy." So a fantasy says that I can do anything. And yes, I went outside naked. "No, you didn't. You didn't really do it. I want you to really do it." Well, I said, "Well, this is a fantasy. I am not going to do it for real. And sometimes I would, I was not going to set foot out of my house without any clothes on. Thank you very much.
I would have just made the door sound like I went outside.
Oh, I did that too. I probably did a little bit of everything.
Did you say there were a lot of jerks?
There were a fair amount, yeah. But there were a lot of guys that I really, really liked, and I would fall in love with a guy, and oh my God, and they would fall in love with me, and it was very difficult when the real good service that I was working with went out of business. Oh, that was so hard.
Wow.
But a lot of these people in the sex business, they're on drugs, they're on, all this stuff. I didn't realize it at the time, but my first boss was put in jail for cocaine use, and I never used anything in my life, really, except pot one time. But you had to do these calls where you would act like you were snorting coke and everything. And I didn't know how to do it, so I did, and sometimes we would do 2 and 3 girl calls. So I was on the call with another girl, and so we were very good together. Some of the other girls were stupid. They were just plain stupid, and they couldn't really sustain calls because they were mostly talking about themselves, and I was always focused on the person I was talking with. So, but this girl was very good, and we were both doing coke and with the guy, and it was a long call, and so it turned out so after we got the guy he hung up, I said, I have to make a confession. I've never done cocaine. She said, I never have done it either. I'm a drug counselor. So it was so funny. And she was doing this as another thing, So some of the girls that we did 2 and 3 girl calls with were extremely good. And I learned a lot from the other girls that I would do calls with. And some of them were extremely knowledgeable. I didn't really know too much about domination or submission. I learned quick because I had to. I think it was about a week and a half after I started, and I may have told some people the story before. I get on the phone with this guy, and he wants me to bark like a dog. And it just struck me so funny, so I go, roof, roof, and start to laugh. Put my hand over the phone. I'm like, oh my God, but I was able to turn the laugh into another bark. And, it was really comical. Because a lot of the stuff, I was very serious about what I did. Other girls would be making me chocolate chip cookies and doing all this kind of thing. I really concentrated on my callers. Very rarely did I do another thing because I didn't think it was fair to not completely concentrate on my callers. And I think they knew that. But a lot of the stuff was funny, and I couldn't help it because I have a raunchy sense of humor anyway, and I love to laugh. And sometimes if a guy wanted a dominatrix, I didn't feel like being a dominatrix. A lot of them wanted submissive women. And so this one guy wanted me to be submissive, and I just was not in the mood. And I said, oh, no, I don't want to be. And he hung up. I was not happy with me. Because they want what they want, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
Did you ever, this is kind of a weird question, did you ever get necrophilia kind of people that were into that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Oh, wow. I must have been
I got everything.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had people that were killing me, were choking me, were...
Oh, God.
That's crazy.
I said, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I think I'm dying. Oh.
You know, Joni, several years ago, there was a governor of New York who obviously, when he used to go to Washington, he was married and had kids. Do you remember him? I forgot his name. Anyway,
yes.
when he used to go to Washington, and he used to call the service.
Oh, right, yeah.
You remember him?
Yeah.
And I remember reading a article by those service people after the governor got busted and all that. He had to resign and so on. Anyway, she said that when the governor used to call, they said, what do you got today? He said, well, we have Joni, it's 22, she's 5,000 for overnight, and we have Mary, which is 24, she is 4,000. Then we also have such and such 20, that'll be about 6,000. He says, all these girls just was same person. But we used to make up that kind of, and used to choose sometimes most expensive one. But actually, she said it was the same girl, but we gave him 3 different names. So I wonder, of course, that people probably don't remember, the reason they got this guy because he used to transfer money from one account to another. FBI thought that he was getting some kind of under-the-table money, but it was his own money. There is a rich guy, comes from a rich Jewish family. I'm sure Joni know who I'm talking about. I can't remember his name. Anyway, by the way, very well educated, Harvard graduate, law degree. He is top of his class and everything else, right?
Yeah, I can't think of his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Right. So anyway, and he used to transfer account to account. So FBI thought that maybe he's doing something, getting some bribe or something. Turned out to be his own money. That's how they keep watching him, going to Washington, and then stay overnight because he was going to conference in the, Senate and all that stuff. And that's how he used to get. But the funny part, the whole thing, I was just thinking, is your company had similar name for different girls, maybe 2, 3 different names, but exactly the same girl?
Oh, I had a bunch of different names, and guys would think that I was different people.
Oh.
I had so many aliases. I had Ginger and April and oh my gosh, well those were my chief ones, and Claudia and Claudette and Hazel, and that's just 5 of them. I probably had about 50 aliases, and I would keep them pretty much straight. But people would think that I was, like, one time I was working for 2 different companies. They were owned by a daughter and a mother. And so I was working for the 2 different companies. So for one of the companies, Ginger and April were twins. And people thought that we were different people. And it was me. It was all me. Because they didn't have enough girls a lot of the time. I'm sorry.
All right, moving right along to David. Are you there, David? If not, we'll move on. All right, Jay.
I already have asked my question. I thought you were gone for a minute.
All right, we'll go to Cleora.
Did you change your voice or anything for the different people that you were? Like they thought Ginger and April were twins. Did you Like,
well, when I did 18-year-olds or 20-year-olds, I did a voice like this. And sometimes they wanted sometimes a guy would want 2 girls, and he didn't want to pay for 2 girls. So he would say to me, "Can you be 2 girls? Can you be a mother and a daughter?" And I'd say, "Sure, I can." So, yes, I'm the mother, and this is my daughter. Oh, and I'm her daughter, and we have so much fun together. I wasn't that good at accents, and that was a selling point, if you could do accents. But I used to listen to a program on the BBC called The Archers, and they had different accents, different Cockney accents, and I kind of got so that I could do, when they wanted to talk with somebody that was British, I could do a British accent fairly well, but I never really was that good at accents, but I used to have to be Chinese or Japanese or Filipina or...
Oh, wow.
So I kind of muddled my way through. And a lot of the work that I did, I muddled my way through because I didn't know about certain things.
Hi, Joni.
Hi. Judy.
Your
my
sister.
My sister that helped me through this whole...
I did not. She did the whole thing herself.
Who took me into stores and showed me things.
You showed me. No, what? And she told me.
Oh, I'm so glad that you came on, Judy.
Well, I just
my sister.
All right. Any other check-ins that I haven't called upon?
Yeah, this is Jay. I think the gentleman who you were talking about, the governor, I think his name was Elliot Schweitzer.
Spitzer. That's right.
Spitzer, Elliot, yeah. All right, I have a question. What about if you had to play a taboo subject like pedophilia? Would you do that, or would you turn the customer down?
No, I did everything. Sometimes there was a subject that I did not want to do. Sometimes people were acting like what they were doing was real, and that just rubbed me the wrong way. So I said, no, I won't do that. But I mostly did everything because it was talking. It wasn't anything else. It wasn't really the real thing, although people would proposition me to be a prostitute. And I said, no, I don't do that. I do things on the phone. But I'm certainly not going to, shall we say, prostitute myself to do that stuff. Fantasy, you can do anything and everything.
Yeah.
Joni, earlier you said that most people, well, maybe not most, but a good many, like the Internet because of the pictures they can see.
Yes.
It stimulates them. With that in mind, how often did you have a blind client?
I think maybe I had 2 blind clients in my whole career. Well, although the services, when they had a disabled client, they would always give them to me. But maybe I had 2 or 3. But that really was all.
I think you're going back to, like you said, a lot of blind people don't have money, or especially in the 90s, it wasn't cheap,
No, it was never cheap, and the service got all the money, and we got nothing.
Buppies.
Yeah.
What was the percentage from all the money that the service got? How much of it did you get as far as percentages?
I have no idea. Except at Christmas time, we would get bonuses and we'd get boxes of chocolate. Because everybody were chocoholics, and that was the best part of it. Big boxes of candy. Oh, if you had done well that year, you'd get your box of candy.
Anybody else? We still have a few moments.
I have a question, Joni.
Yeah, Karen.
And this might sound kind of odd, but maybe you didn't, but I'm just curious. Did you ever meet any of your callers in person?
Actually, I did. I spoke with a guy who lived in, or not too far from where the, near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. His son went to the college there with 9/11, where one of the planes had hit. And he and his wife came to visit me. And he kind of had an addiction to talking to me. So, and he really wanted to meet me. And I figured if she came with him, it might be interesting. And he sounded like a guy that I could trust. And Judy, are you still there?
I am.
Some people thought I should meet him. Some people said, you're going to let this guy into your house? But I had a feeling about him and his wife, and they came, and we went out to lunch, and they brought me some CDs, and we just had a wonderful time together. And her name was Patty.
Weren't they going to get...
What?
Didn't he tell you they were going to get divorced or something?
Oh, right. Their marriage was kind of on the outs because he was doing this so much, and she was very upset with him. And basically, I saved their marriage, which I was very, very pleased with, because he was a school teacher, and he spent a lot of his free time on the phone talking to me. And so they both came, and they told me that I saved their marriage. So I was very glad about that.
So did he continue to call after they came and met you?
Yeah, he did.
Anyone else? It's time for a couple more.
Anything you want to know?
But don't be afraid to ask.
I think we've
covered
everything.
Go ahead.
Joni, do you think with this couple coming to see you and you talking with them, do you think it had anything to do with you talking to them as using all your background?
Oh, yeah, but I saved their marriage. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think. They were a lovely couple, and I wanted to see them stay together. They had a bunch of kids, and who knows if they're still together, but they really loved each other, and I knew it. I could sense that.
Okay, one more.
Yes, I got a question, and maybe you can answer it, Joni, maybe you can't. But did you help other people save relationships that they had?
I don't know.
You knew about?
I don't know. I hope I did.
I'd like to think you did.
Yeah, I hope so.
Do you think?
No.
But a lot of people were very unhappy in their marriages, and that's why they talked to me, because they were so unhappy because their wife wouldn't fulfill their needs, and I, in a small way, did. And so, but it's hard to know.
It must have, though, in a way, must have been awkward to, especially for the spouse that was accused of not fulfilling the other spouse's needs, and that's where you came in. For that particular other spouse, I wonder what their reaction was when, or if, you did succeed in making their physical relationship work again. Oh, you got that.
I don't know, but they didn't like it that their husbands or fiancés were calling sex lines. And sometimes women would call and they'd say, I saw this number on my phone bill. Who are you? And we were told to just hang up.
Yeah.
Wow. Because
interesting.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
And I spoke with women too. I mean, I spoke with women that were very unhappy, and that I had a woman that wanted me to come and live with her in Arkansas. Just, I'll send you a ticket. Wow. I'm lonely. Wow. Oh, and I had somebody in New York too that kept calling me. I'm lonely. I need somebody to be with. I need a partner. Well, I obviously didn't move to Brooklyn.
No.
All righty. Anything else? Oh, Joni, it's an occupation, obviously, that is very common, very popular, and I commend you for, what you've done to help a lot of relationships out and help a lot of individuals out privately. And whatever works, I suppose. And, I would assume that even though you aren't doing it on a regular basis anymore, that you would continue if there was a particular individual out there who needed some assistance?
Yes, if they'll pay, I'll do it. But I'm not going to do it for nothing.
Oh, no, you wouldn't, no. Well, thanks, Joni, for appearing again. And as usual, you have been very inspiring.
Thank
you. I'm sure that my listeners would agree.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks again, Joni.
Well, Bob, if people want to stay on and still talk, can you